If I told you that the greatest threat to your independence after 60 is not disease, not genetics, and not even aging itself, but a quiet loss of strength happening while you believe you're doing everything right, would you pause for a moment and reconsider what movement really means? Every day, millions of older adults walk faithfully, trusting that each step is protecting their future. Yet in operating rooms and recovery wards, surgeons see a different story unfolding, one where strong hearts are paired with fragile legs, steady routines with unstable balance, and long walks with an inability to rise from a chair without help, a reality that reveals why one simple, overlooked exercise now matters more than walking ever could. Most people arrive at their 60s believing they already understand movement. They have walked for decades, trusted their legs to carry them through work, family, hardship, and routine. Walking feels safe, familiar, almost sacred. It is often prescribed as the ultimate solution for aging bodies, and in many ways, it is comforting to believe that something so simple can preserve health. Yet when you look closely at how the human body actually ages, a quieter, more complex truth begins to emerge, one that challenges this comforting assumption without dismissing it entirely. The body after 60 is not merely an older version of the body at 40, it is biologically different, responding to stimuli in new and sometimes fragile ways. With age, the most dramatic change is not in how far we can walk, but in how much force our muscles can produce in a moment of need. Muscle tissue naturally diminishes, especially the fibers responsible for quick reactions and stability. These fibers are not heavily recruited during walking, which is rhythmic and predictable. Walking trains endurance, but it asks very little of strength, balance correction, or joint stabilization. Over time, this creates a quiet imbalance. A person may walk daily and still struggle to rise from a chair, catch themselves during a stumble, or climb stairs without fear. These struggles are not signs of laziness or neglect, they are signs of biology being understimulated in critical ways. The exercise that outperforms walking after 60 does something fundamentally different. It introduces deliberate resistance, whether through body weight, slow squats, controlled leg presses, or seated strength movements. This resistance sends a clear signal to the muscles, bones, and nervous system that they are still required to work together. Bones respond by maintaining density. Muscles respond by preserving size and responsiveness. The nervous system responds by sharpening communication between brain and body. This is not speculation, it is observable in rehabilitation settings, surgical recovery programs, and long-term aging studies where strength-focused movement consistently reduces injury risk and loss of independence. What makes this particularly important is how the body prioritizes survival as it ages. When muscles are not challenged, the body slowly reallocates resources away from them. Strength fades not because time passes, but because demand disappears. Resistance-based movement restores that demand in a safe, controlled manner. It tells the body that standing up, stabilizing joints, and reacting to imbalance are still essential tasks. Walking alone does not deliver this message strongly enough, especially in older adults whose bodies are already conserving energy wherever possible. There is also a cardiovascular dimension that often surprises people. Walking maintains steady circulation, which is beneficial, but resistance exercise creates brief, manageable increases in blood pressure and heart rate that train the heart and blood vessels to adapt. This improves vascular flexibility, helping blood vessels respond more effectively to sudden changes, such as standing up quickly or navigating uneven ground. These adaptations reduce dizziness, falls, and strain on the heart over time. Surgeons recognize this because patients with better muscular strength recover faster, experience fewer complications, and tolerate stress more effectively during and after medical procedures. Beyond the measurable biology lies something more subtle but equally powerful. Resistance-based exercise demands attention. It requires awareness of posture, breath, and controlled effort. This reawakens the connection between mind and body, which often dulls with repetitive, automatic movement. Walking can be meditative, but it can also become passive. Strength-focused movement invites presence. Each repetition becomes a conversation with the body, an acknowledgement of limitation without surrender to it. This psychological engagement plays a crucial role in long-term adherence and confidence. Many older adults fear that strength-based exercise is dangerous or aggressive, but when performed correctly, it is often safer than relying on endurance alone. Weak muscles place excessive stress on joints, ligaments, and bones during everyday activities. Strength protects movement rather than threatening it. This is why surgeons and rehabilitation specialists consistently emphasize strength as the foundation of safe mobility. They do not oppose walking, they recognize its limits. Walking moves you forward, but strength keeps you upright, balanced, and resilient. Perhaps the most profound impact of this exercise is how it reshapes the narrative of aging. It challenges the idea that growing older means shrinking your physical expectations. Instead, it reframes aging as a period where intelligent, targeted effort matters more than volume or speed. The body remains responsive well into later decades when it is given the right signals. Resistance provides those signals clearly and efficiently, reminding the body that it is still capable of adaptation, still worthy of care, still designed to respond to challenge rather than retreat from it. As the years pass, the most important system we rarely talk about is not the muscles themselves, but the invisible network that controls them. The nervous system is the silent conductor of movement, deciding how quickly a muscle fires, how strongly it contracts, and how smoothly the body responds to the unexpected. After 60, this system begins to slow, not because it is broken, but because it is no longer being asked to perform complex tasks. Walking, while beneficial, is highly predictable. The ground is usually flat, the pace is steady, and the body settles into an automatic rhythm that requires minimal decision-making from the brain. Over time, this predictability dulls the communication between nerves and muscles in ways most people never notice until something goes wrong. When a person stumbles, slips, or missteps, the body has milliseconds to respond. The brain must detect imbalance, send signals through the spinal cord, activate specific muscle fibers, and coordinate a correction. These rapid responses depend on neural pathways that weaken when they are not used. Resistance-based exercise, especially slow and controlled movements, directly trains this system. Each repetition forces the brain to stay engaged, to monitor joint position, muscle tension, and balance. This active engagement strengthens neural connections, improving reaction time and coordination in ways walking simply cannot replicate. This is why surgeons and neurologists pay such close attention to strength-based movement in older adults. In clinical settings, patients with stronger neuromuscular control experience fewer falls, recover balance more effectively, and maintain functional independence longer. These benefits are not accidental. Resistance exercises challenge the body in multiple planes of motion, forcing stabilizing muscles to activate alongside larger muscle groups. This layered activation teaches the nervous system to manage complexity again, something it gradually forgets when movement becomes too repetitive or passive. There is also a profound relationship between resistance exercise and proprioception, the body's ability to sense its position in space. Proprioception fades quietly with age, increasing the risk of misjudging steps, distances, or body alignment. Walking on familiar paths does little to stimulate this sense. In contrast, controlled resistance movements require constant adjustments. The body must sense how far a joint is bending, how much force is being applied, and how weight is distributed. Over time, this restores the internal map that allows the body to move confidently through the world. The brain itself benefits from this process. Movement that requires focus and coordination increases blood flow to regions involved in motor planning and executive function. This stimulation supports cognitive health, reinforcing the connection between physical capability and mental clarity. Many older adults report improved focus, confidence, and mood after incorporating resistance-based movement into their routines. These changes are not purely emotional. They are rooted in measurable neurological adaptations that occur when the brain is challenged in meaningful ways. Another overlooked factor is how resistance training improves joint stability. Joints rely on surrounding muscles to maintain alignment and absorb force. When these muscles weaken, joints bear stress they were never designed to handle alone. Walking places repetitive load on joints without strengthening the structures that protect them. Resistance-based movement, when done carefully, strengthens these protective muscles, reducing pain and improving range of motion. This is why many individuals experience less joint discomfort after beginning strength-focused routines, even if they previously believed exercise would worsen their pain. Fear often becomes a barrier at this stage of life. Many older adults move cautiously, afraid that challenging their bodies will lead to injury. Ironically, this fear accelerates decline. Avoiding challenge teaches the nervous system to expect fragility. Resistance-based exercise, introduced gradually and safely, rebuilds trust between the mind and body. Each successful movement reinforces the belief that the body can still respond, still adapt, still protect itself. This psychological shift is as important as the physical changes, because confidence directly influences how people move in everyday life. In surgical recovery and long-term care, this principle becomes unmistakably clear. Patients who maintain neuromuscular strength regain mobility faster, experience fewer complications, and retain greater independence. These outcomes are not driven by endurance alone, but by the nervous system's ability to coordinate strength, balance, and timing. Walking supports circulation, but resistance restores control. Control is what prevents falls, preserves autonomy, and allows older adults to navigate the unpredictable nature of real life with confidence rather than caution. At its core, this exercise is not about lifting heavier weights or pushing limits. It is about reawakening communication within the body, reminding the brain and muscles how to speak to each other clearly again. Aging does not silence this conversation on its own, neglect does. When resistance is reintroduced thoughtfully, the body responds with remarkable intelligence, proving that coordination, balance, and strength are not lost with age, but simply waiting to be asked for again. There is a quiet metabolic story unfolding inside the body after 60, one that rarely announces itself with pain or urgency, yet shapes energy levels, weight, and long-term disease risk in powerful ways. Cells become less efficient at handling sugar, muscles lose their role as primary glucose storage sites, and inflammation begins to simmer at low levels throughout the body. Walking helps burn calories, but it does little to address this deeper metabolic shift. The body needs a stronger signal to remain metabolically flexible, and that signal comes from muscles being asked to work against resistance, to contract fully, to demand fuel in a way that awakens dormant systems rather than simply sustaining existing ones. Muscle tissue is not just for movement, it is one of the body's most important metabolic organs. Every time a muscle contracts under resistance, it pulls glucose out of the bloodstream without requiring as much insulin. This becomes increasingly important with age, as insulin sensitivity naturally declines. Walking uses muscles gently and repetitively, but resistance-based movement activates a much larger percentage of muscle fibers. This creates a stronger demand for energy, teaching the body to manage blood sugar more effectively and reducing the strain placed on the pancreas over time. In clinical observation, older adults who engage in regular strength-focused movement often show improved glucose control even without significant weight loss. This metabolic effect extends beyond sugar regulation. Resistance exercise increases resting metabolic rate by preserving muscle mass, which naturally declines with age. Muscle requires energy even at rest, meaning a stronger body burns more calories throughout the day without additional effort. Walking burns calories during the activity itself, but once it ends, the metabolic effect quickly fades. Strength-based movement leaves a longer imprint, subtly shifting how the body uses energy for hours afterward. This difference becomes especially meaningful later in life, when small metabolic advantages accumulate into significant health outcomes. Inflammation is another silent force shaping aging. Chronic low-grade inflammation contributes to joint pain, cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and fatigue. Resistance-based exercise has been shown to reduce inflammatory markers by improving muscle function and regulating immune responses. This happens not through exhaustion, but through controlled stress that the body learns to recover from efficiently. Walking is soothing, but it rarely challenges the system enough to trigger these adaptive anti-inflammatory responses. The body, much like the mind, grows calmer not from avoiding stress entirely, but from learning how to manage it effectively. There is also a hormonal dimension that often goes unnoticed. Strength-based movement stimulates the release of hormones that support tissue repair, bone maintenance, and overall vitality. While these hormones decline with age, they do not disappear. They respond to demand. When muscles are challenged, even gently, the body is reminded that maintenance and repair are still worthwhile investments. This is why resistance exercise plays such a critical role in preserving bone density and reducing fracture risk. Walking provides impact, but not the multidirectional force that bones require to remain strong and responsive. Energy levels often improve as a result of these changes. Many older adults feel paradoxically more energized after incorporating resistance-based movement into their routines, even though it requires more effort than walking. This is because metabolic efficiency improves, circulation becomes more responsive, and muscles store and release energy more effectively. Fatigue associated with aging is frequently misunderstood as inevitable, when in reality it is often linked to understimulation of systems designed to work dynamically rather than passively. The psychological effects of improved metabolism are subtle but profound. Stable blood sugar supports mood, focus, and emotional resilience. Reduced inflammation lessens discomfort and mental fog. When the body feels more stable internally, confidence grows externally. Everyday tasks feel less draining, decisions feel clearer, and movement feels purposeful rather than obligatory. This creates a positive feedback loop where physical capability reinforces mental well-being, encouraging continued engagement rather than withdrawal. Resistance-based exercise also reshapes the relationship with effort. Walking can become a background activity, something done while the mind drifts elsewhere. Strength-focused movement demands presence. It invites the individual to feel the muscle working, to notice breath, to observe recovery. This awareness fosters respect for the body's signals rather than fear of them. Over time, people begin to distinguish between healthy exertion and harmful strain, a skill that protects against both inactivity and overexertion. From a surgeon's perspective, these metabolic advantages translate into resilience. Patients with better metabolic health heal faster, tolerate stress more effectively, and face fewer complications during recovery. Muscles that are metabolically active support circulation, stabilize blood sugar during stress, and reduce systemic inflammation. These factors influence outcomes far beyond the gym or living room, shaping how the body responds to illness, injury, and the natural challenges of aging. Ultimately, this exercise is not about replacing walking, but about completing what walking cannot do alone. It addresses the internal environment of the body, the chemistry that determines how well systems communicate and recover. Aging does not strip the body of its capacity for metabolic adaptation. It simply raises the threshold of stimulus required to maintain it. Resistance meets that threshold with clarity and efficiency, reminding the body that strength, balance, and vitality are not relics of youth, but ongoing biological conversations waiting to be continued. With advancing age, the spine quietly becomes the axis around which many other problems revolve. It is not merely a column of bones, but a living conduit for nerves, blood flow, posture, and balance. When spinal alignment deteriorates, the effects ripple outward, influencing breathing, digestion, circulation, and even emotional state. Many people assume spinal compression is an unavoidable consequence of aging, yet when observing Chinese elders, one notices a different relationship with gravity. Their movements consistently honor verticality, not through rigidity, but through gentle elongation that restores space where collapse once existed. Scientifically, the spine is designed to bear load through natural curves that distribute force evenly. With age, these curves often exaggerate or flatten due to muscle imbalances, prolonged sitting, and fear-driven stiffness. Forward head posture and rounded shoulders compress intervertebral discs, narrowing the spaces through which nerves exit the spinal column. This compression does not merely cause back pain, it interferes with nerve signaling throughout the body. Chinese daily movements subtly counteract this process by encouraging axial lengthening, allowing the spine to decompress without force or strain. These movements rarely involve aggressive stretching. Instead, they cultivate awareness of upward direction while remaining grounded through the feet. From a biomechanical perspective, this creates traction generated internally by posture rather than externally by pulling. When the head floats upward and the pelvis settles downward, gravitational forces redistribute, relieving pressure on discs and facet joints. Research shows that even mild decompression improves hydration of spinal discs, enhancing shock absorption and reducing stiffness. The body responds quickly when given space. Postural movements practiced by Chinese elders also strengthen deep stabilizing muscles that modern exercise often overlooks. Muscles such as the multifidus and transverse abdominis play critical roles in spinal integrity, yet they activate best during slow, controlled movements rather than heavy lifting. By moving with deliberate pacing and attention, elders engage these muscles naturally, reinforcing the spine from within. This internal support reduces reliance on superficial tension that often leads to pain and fatigue. Nerve health is another hidden beneficiary of these practices. The spinal cord and peripheral nerves require freedom of movement to function optimally. Compression and misalignment restrict neural glide, increasing sensitivity and discomfort. Gentle spinal motions restore this mobility, improving signal transmission between brain and body. From a neurological standpoint, clearer communication means better coordination, balance, and strength. Pain decreases not because tissues are numbed, but because messages travel unimpeded. Breathing patterns are deeply intertwined with spinal posture. A collapsed spine restricts rib movement, reducing lung capacity and oxygen delivery. Chinese movements encourage expansion through the thoracic spine, allowing the breath to deepen naturally. Increased oxygenation supports cellular repair and cognitive clarity, while slow breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system. This physiological calm further relaxes spinal muscles, creating a feedback loop where posture and breath reinforce one another. There is also a profound relationship between spinal alignment and balance, a critical concern after 60. The spine serves as the body's central reference point for orientation in space. When alignment is compromised, balance reactions become delayed or exaggerated. Chinese elders often integrate subtle weight shifts and spinal rotations that recalibrate this internal compass. Improved balance emerges not from stronger legs alone, but from a spine that communicates clearly with the nervous system. Emotionally, posture reflects inner state. Chronic collapse often accompanies fatigue, stress, or resignation, while gentle uprightness fosters confidence and alertness. These movements do not demand straightness, they invite it. The body responds by releasing habitual tension and rediscovering ease. Pain, often amplified by emotional strain, softens when posture aligns with comfort rather than effort. What appears meditative on the surface is grounded in measurable physiological change. Disc pressure decreases, nerve conduction improves, muscle coordination refines, and breathing deepens. These benefits accumulate slowly but persistently through daily practice. Chinese elders do not seek to correct posture through forceful correction. They allow alignment to emerge through movement that respects anatomy and time. By restoring spinal integrity, these movements influence every system connected to the central axis of the body. Strength becomes more accessible, pain less dominant, and movement more fluid. Aging, rather than compressing life inward, regains a sense of vertical spaciousness where the body feels supported, balanced, and quietly capable once again. There is a subtle wisdom embedded in the human body that often becomes clearer with age. It is the understanding that health is not maintained through extremes, but through consistency, awareness, and respect for limits. Resistance-based exercise, especially later in life, embodies this wisdom. It is not about pushing harder or chasing intensity, but about choosing movements that invite the body to participate fully without being overwhelmed. This approach aligns naturally with how aging bodies adapt, favoring thoughtful challenge over relentless repetition. As people grow older, recovery becomes just as important as effort. The body's ability to repair tissue, regulate inflammation, and restore balance slows slightly, making reckless exertion counterproductive. Resistance-based movement, when practiced with control, honors this reality. Slow, deliberate motions allow muscles, joints, and connective tissue to experience tension without shock. This kind of stress is not harmful, it is instructive. It teaches the body how to rebuild efficiently, strengthening structures that support daily life rather than exhausting them. One of the most overlooked benefits of this exercise is how it improves movement quality rather than quantity. Walking encourages repetition, often at the same pace and in the same patterns. Resistance-based movement invites variation. It asks the body to bend, extend, stabilize, and balance in ways that mirror real-world demands. This diversity prepares the body for the unpredictable nature of life, where uneven ground, sudden turns, and unexpected obstacles are far more common than smooth, straight paths. There is also a deep connection between resistance-based movement and longevity that goes beyond disease prevention. Longevity is not simply about adding years, it is about preserving the ability to engage meaningfully with those years. Strength supports posture, breathing, and joint alignment, all of which influence how comfortably a person moves through space. When posture improves, breathing becomes more efficient, circulation improves, and fatigue decreases. These changes compound over time, shaping how aging is experienced from day to day. Resistance exercise also encourages humility and patience, qualities that serve people well as they age. Progress is gradual, often subtle, and requires attention. This contrasts with the instant gratification culture that dominates much of modern health advice. In this slower rhythm, people learn to listen to their bodies rather than override them. They notice small improvements, steadier balance, smoother transitions, less hesitation. These moments reinforce the value of persistence over urgency. From a medical perspective, this approach reduces risk. Falls, fractures, and joint injuries are among the most common reasons older adults lose independence. Resistance-based movement strengthens the muscles that protect joints and absorb impact, reducing the likelihood that a minor misstep becomes a major injury. Surgeons understand that prevention often begins long before an operating room is involved. Strength is one of the most effective preventive tools available, yet it remains underutilized due to misconceptions about safety and suitability for older bodies. There is also an emotional steadiness that emerges from this form of movement. When people feel physically grounded, their emotional responses often become more regulated. Anxiety decreases, mood stabilizes, and a sense of control returns. This is not because exercise eliminates life's challenges, but because it equips the body to handle stress more effectively. Resistance-based movement trains the nervous system to remain calm under load, a skill that translates seamlessly into daily life. Community and connection often grow from this practice as well. Whether performed alone at home or in small groups, strength-based movement fosters shared experience and mutual encouragement. People begin to exchange stories, progress, and insights, creating social bonds rooted in empowerment rather than limitation. This sense of belonging supports mental health and reinforces commitment, making the practice sustainable over the long term. Perhaps the most meaningful aspect of this exercise is how it reframes aging itself. Instead of viewing aging as a gradual narrowing of possibilities, it presents it as a refinement. Movements become more intentional, effort becomes more focused, and outcomes become more meaningful. Strength is no longer about appearance or competition, it is about capability and presence. It is about being able to participate fully in one's own life. The body responds remarkably well when treated with patience and respect. Even after 60, it adapts, strengthens, and learns. Resistance-based movement offers a pathway that aligns with this natural intelligence, providing challenge without harm, effort without exhaustion. It reminds us that longevity is not sustained by avoiding effort, but by choosing the right kind of effort, applied thoughtfully and consistently, allowing the body to age not in retreat, but in quiet, resilient forward motion.